know what? It sounds a bit defeatist, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I'm not going to lie.
You ever seen a better goal scored with an Arsenal bum? I don't think so. And I said to him after the game, I said, why are you doing that, scoring with your bum? He said, hey, they all count, brother. So he's right, that made a massive difference. I just think Arsenal have nailed that down to a T, and I joke that Amorim hasn't got a plan for it. We said it, no one has. I think people sleep on Timber.
But at 4-0, when Havertz scored, at that moment, I'm sitting here thinking, oh my goodness, how good are we?
Arsenal make history with 4 league wins in a row against United for the first time. I'm Talia Lazarus, and this is Inside Gooners. So joining me today to revel in another great week for Arsenal are European football expert Julien Laurens, Arsenal Vision podcaster Clive Palmer, and broadcaster and commentator Harry Symeou. Yes, guys, it's December, the Christmas lights are up, the water is wet, and Arsenal just beat Man United again. But seriously, Clive, we shouldn't take beating Man United for granted, should we?
Nope. Lifetime of pain. And I haven't forgotten some of those days, so which made me enjoy this a lot more than I normally do. So yeah, great.
Nicely put. So now we are joined by the host of Inside Devils, Flex. Flex, welcome to Inside Gooners.
Thanks for having me. You choose the right time to reel me out, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely, of course. Going to do it straight after a nice Arsenal win. So, Flex, first of all, what did you make of the team that Amorim selected?
There was a few eyebrows raised, actually. The fact that Ahmad didn't start, I was very surprised at that. The fact that Marcus Rashford didn't start, because he does love a game at the Emirates, even though we're on the wrong end of the result. I do think that he enjoys and relishes playing at the Emirates, and has got a couple of goals in the last couple of seasons there. I was really surprised to see Terrell Malacia start at left wing back, having spent somewhat 560 odd days out of football. Had a tough time in Europa League on Thursday night against Bodo Glimt. Came off at half time in that game, but didn't play particularly well, which is understandable. So to ask him to deal with Saka in that first 45 minutes was what I thought would have been a big ask, but he did okay. So, yeah, I think that Amorim, in the name, he's been saying he's going to rotate the squad. We've got a lot of games to play. He's trying to find out who his best team is. And we've got a lot of players who are coming back from really, really long-term injuries. And we lost Luke Shaw again just before we played you as well. So there were problems he had to sort. So I understand being 4 games in and still sort of having this rotation. But there were some eyebrows raised, definitely, from our starting team.
Yeah, there was some interesting moments of people saying, welcome to the Premier League, Amorim.
Well, it was welcome to the Bet365 Stadium. That's what it was. That's what it was.
I thought we were friends.
Nobody's friends when it's the next day.
It's really funny. It's really funny because when Clive and I spoke on Inside Devils, actually, Clive was basically saying, and I agreed, and I put it to Clive, that right-hand side of Arsenal's with Saka and Timber played very well, by the way, Odegaard, I just thought they'd have the luxury of the Emirates. And actually, the way the game panned out, it's actually the set pieces we're talking about, which is a common thing for Arsenal, I know, because they're so good at them. But it wasn't the likes of the free-flowing football that you'd probably expect from Arsenal. I think we did a good job of nullifying a lot of Arsenal's preferential play in open play. But the disparity between the two teams was there. The fact that Arsenal had 13 corners and we had 0 shows just who was asking the questions and who was answering them. So, listen, I'm having a bit of tongue-in-cheek in terms of the Bet365. And, I said to a few of the Arsenal fans down there, I know you're playing red and white in block, but you need to change that to stripes going down. You need to be a bit more like Stoke. But you deserve the win. And there's different ways to skin a cat, right? And last time I checked, set pieces are a big part of it. And really, we're all just mad because we don't know how to stop it. I sat in that away end. I saw all those Arsenal players at the back post time and time and time again after the corners. I'm just like, somebody do something. It feels like they're going to score with every single delivery, and they could have had more from the set pieces.
Flex, surely you guys talk about the game kind of being decided by set pieces. Surely it was because you guys turned up playing like a team that should be playing at the Bet365 Stadium that the game came down to that.
No, we turned up like a team who looked like they're 3 or 4 games into their manager. I saw another team who's 5 years into their manager, and we managed to. I was pleased at the fact we managed to stifle them. I'm not going to lie. In the first half, Emirates was quiet, mate. And Ruben Amorim spoke about it after, saying that you could feel the atmosphere. The fans were a little bit disgruntled because, and you guys will know better than me, I think you wouldn't have expected that type of performance from Arsenal. And I think it is partially down to how we set up. Yes, be compact. We know what we are. We know how far away we are from where we want to get to versus who we're playing against. 5 against West Ham, 5 against Sporting. You know, everyone, Odegaard's back in the goals. So we had to be really, really careful that the game wasn't over before it even started. So I think we did a good job of stinking the place out, as you call it. But, there wasn't much in it. No shots on target for both teams at the end of the first half. But there was only one team who, I admit, who was going to be able to raise their level. And like you say, mate, you're right. Like the fact that you had 13 corners means that we were camped in. And from the attack-wise, which the manager said afterwards, Ruben Amorim, he said that, we need time to work on those attacking patterns. We had nothing in the final third, 6 final third entries compared to Arsenal's 35 or 36, I think it was. So, yeah, we've got loads to work on. But actually, you know what? It sounds a bit defeatist, but it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I'm not going to lie.
Flex, to be fair, I think when Amorim arrived, of all those 4 games that he started with, the Ipswich one, Bodo Glimt, Everton, and this one was probably the one that I would think, listen, this is probably one that we lose and we don't count on anything on this one, apart from, like we've been saying, a bit of a squad review. Let's see who can play well. Let's try a Mason Mount inside 10. Let's try Malacia again, those kind of stuff. Lenny Yoro came on, which I was really happy with. But in a way, did you see it that way as well? It was a bit of a free card in a way. We go to the Emirates. If we win, great. If we get a point, great. But it's more likely that we're not going to win or get a point. So we learn from it and we move on.
100%, Julian. That's exactly how we saw it. And I know there's 2 ways of looking at this, right? Oh, the mighty Man United. You're saying it's okay to go to Arsenal and lose and it's a free hit. Well, in the grand scheme of Man United, the badge, no. But in reality of where Manchester United are as a team, all the pressure was on Arsenal to win last night. And they've done that and now closed the gap on Liverpool, who dropped points, which is why it's essential Arsenal won. Yeah. We're just doing exactly what you just said there. Ruben Amorim is trying to have a look at this squad. He's trying to manage the load of players who have been out of football for a very, very long time. And we have a really, really condensed fixture list, as does everybody. And he's trying to get to grips with who's there. And I like it. I mean, I think we might have dropped the bag by not starting Ahmad, considering that Zinchenko and Kiwior had to play down that left-hand side. And you saw Ahmad going at Zinchenko, got him booked. If he would have started the game, it might have been different. But I'm not mad at Ruben Amorim. And I like the way he's talking. One thing we know, when you walk into a football club, if you have the transparency with the fans and the clarity with the fans, it's easier to buy in. And I think Ruben Amorim was very clever before this game. He said, we will get found out soon. He said it, we will get found out. And it's almost like, you're right, Julian. We looked at this game and we say, right, Arsenal, let's be honest, in my heart of hearts, I knew we'd lose. It's a step too far, too soon for us to play against Arsenal. And we never win at Arsenal, ever. I'm fed up of it. Since Jesse Lingard made it the dance floor, we haven't won there. And I hate that. And I hate going there. So we always do lose there. And I thought we would. The same, we've got City away, probably going to be too soon for us. Spurs away, Liverpool away. You'd probably want some of those at home for a big atmosphere, but we haven't got it. So we have to just take the small wins, the fact that we were compact, the fact that we try some players in different positions, and the fitness is rising.
So on this, are you looking forward to the FA Cup game?
No. Dion Dublin. I don't know why. He's supposed to be doing us a favour. And then again, we've got to come back in January. I just can't get a break from this place. I hate going to the Emirates because we always lose. You can tell the frustration in my voice. And now we've got to come back in January. What we will be by then, though, hopefully, it's not too far away, but in a few weeks' time, hopefully, I hope we show a little bit more intent at the attacking side of the pitch, because we do need more time to do that. I think we've got big problems in terms of a bit of an identity crisis, which you would expect, because we've spent over £600 million investing into a squad for Erik ten Hag that didn't play the Ajax way, didn't play the Manchester United way. It's a mishmash of nothing, let's be honest. Garnacho is not great in that inside 10. He's got to learn that. Rashford, is that a natural fit for him? Probably not, but he's got problems up front. Dallow's been struggling at wing-back, whether it's left or right, but Mazraoui's done excellent. But Yoro's back in there. Luke Shaw's now out injured. So we've got a lot to fix. But no, Talia, I'm not looking forward to coming back to the Emirates in January.
Oh, well, you know what? I'm going to take your word for it. Oh.
As the holders.
Okay, well, I'm going to take your word for it anyway. And I'm actually going to say, well, if that's it, you're not going to win at the Emirates, then I look forward to seeing you in January at the FA Cup game. Thank you for joining, Flex.
Thank you. Cheers, guys.
So now the Man United fan has gone. We can finally indulge in our 4 league win in a row against them. So let's get some reaction from the ground last night with Harry Durham.
Julian, bish bash bosh, let's kick it straight off. Arsenal, 3 points against Manchester United. Liverpool drop points. Is the title race back on, my friend?
It was never off. It was only off for the people who had little or no faith. I am not one of those people. I always believe, because I've seen it done before, and I will see it done again. Liverpool are a very good team. Liverpool, everything has gone their way. Arsenal, everything hasn't gone their way this season. Everything that could have gone wrong has gone wrong. Those days are now over, and we're now, 7 points? We've still got to play them. And yes, things are turning. The worm has turned.
Right, league judges. Arsenal 3 points against the rivals Manchester United. Liverpool drop points 3-3 at Newcastle. Don't want to say it too loudly. Is the race back on?
Back on, like, you know, can we sing that song we just sung there? Like,
No, you can sing it. I'm not an Arsenal fan, so you can sing it. I'm a neutral.
Set pieces again, ole ole. Set piece again. Set piece again. Set piece again, ole ole.
You said about set pieces. Is that the best goal that you've ever seen off someone's bottom, like Saliba?
Unbelievable, like, you know. And listen, this is what it's about. Sometimes you can't beat teams like by playing the football. Sometimes you have to get like the set piece and all that, and that's what's key today, and that's got us to win today, like, you know. And listen, it's a great day today. We've had a great result, but we've gone down in the league, you know. So like, but even though we've gone down one place, we're still happy, like.
Are you worried about Chelsea in the title race or not?
No, they'll drop off. No chance. They've got still a lot of building to do to get to where we are.
Again, set pieces, we just are very effective.
Are you set piece FC?
We might be set piece FC, but I think people Wenger, I think, neglected them. Arteta does not neglect them, and it's a massive part of who we are as a team.
And you'd rather score goals from open play, but are you happy just as long as the ball goes in the back of a net off a set piece?
As a fan of a North Bank, mate, I'm happy as long as the ball goes in the back of a net. But yeah, I mean, like in the second half, we had opportunity to score other goals. We didn't. We scored 2 goals to set pieces. That's fine for me against Man United, who I despise with a passion.
I've got to ask you as well. I've got to ask you, William Saliba, is that the best goal that you've ever seen off of someone's booty?
Yeah, I think so. I've scored a few myself down at the 5 sides, but I think the whole performance from Saliba is just unbelievable. He's shut Hoyland in a box all game. He'll be empty in the pockets after.
Got to ask you as well, mate. The rivalry between you and Manchester United is legendary.
Yeah.
But talk to me, how big is the gap now? Like, listen, they've had so many different managers since the Wenger and Fergie era. But if you look at it right now, I know they're in transition. New manager. But just how big is the gap now between the two clubs? It's not even really a rivalry anymore, is it?
I think you saw in about 75 minutes, all the fans just knew it was over. There weren't much in it. You had to feel a bit sorry for him today, really. Huge gap.
Mr. Judges, to finish off, I want you to send a message to the Liverpool fans down the barrel of that camera. We've got a long way to go in the title, mate. I don't think you've won at Anfield since 2015. You tell them, give them a message for that title race.
Tell you what, look, listen, you know who's better than us. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And at the end of the day, you get nothing at Christmas, only presents.
Great reactions there from the Emirates. Clive, I'm sorry, was being right in the centre of that VT behind not enough? Did you have to do it? Yeah. We've all done that before.
I was just there
we see the camera, we see the mic, we just hover behind. Was it not enough to come in today?
No, I was actually talking about today to Matt. So yeah.
So now 4 players I actually do want to talk about are Rice, Timber, Raya and Kyrgios. Let's start with Rice, who won man of the match. Clive, did we see the best of him last night?
We saw him moving again, and I think it's an interesting game because I thought we were a bit sort of slow in the first half. I felt that Man United did well keeping the ball away from us with a back 5 and keeping people behind the ball. I don't think they're interested in going forward, but they're interested into quelling us. So eventually we became more threatening by winning the ball back. And he's a big part of that, second balls. And he started to move. His corners were excellent in the second half and right in front of me. And they were like lasers, you know. And he grew into it. And he fully admits that he's had a slow start to the season. And I think now we're playing every 3 days. We as fans have to accept that some players might be feeling something when they're out there on the pitch. And he's obviously had an injury and he's not been at himself. But I sort of thought he did really well in Lisbon last week as well. And I thought he's starting to get back to his play. So he was excellent.
It was a big summer for him. And I think this season was always going to be, because of the Euros and short holidays, everything that happened with England, the good things and the disappointment of not winning the whole thing as well, was always going to just catch up a bit with him, I think. And I agree with Clive. I think he had a slow start of the season, partly probably for physical reasons. And he needs to be 100% fit, really, to have that energy and to be able to run everywhere and for his game to be at his best. And I think yesterday, again, I thought it was a slow start from him, like the rest of the team. But the second half, he just ran that game and bossed that midfield.
I think the second half was as good as I've seen Declan Rice play this season. We talk about all the physical stuff, and I completely agree with that. I do wonder if in the first half, I think the team generally were quite apprehensive. I think they expected United to sit with the 3, and they were going to try and press the back 3. And then all of a sudden it was a 5, and it was like, well, how does our pressing pattern work in this instance, and how do we deal with it? And I think there might have been a bit of apprehension on Rice's part about the fact that he had Zinchenko and Kiwior behind him. It's not the same stable partnership that you have when it's Gabriel and Calafiori, for instance, or Gabriel and Timber. So I wonder if that played a little bit of a part in his slow start to the game as well.
Yeah, I sort of agree. I think there's something there in that game. I was watching, I was thinking, Rice can play 8 and play 6. As this game was developing, it just felt like a Rice 6 game. And he got back there. And when he went back there, I felt we grew. Partey went to right back. He got better there. And we changed this. We sorted out Ahmad, who came on. He looked pretty sharp. Timber went over. He shut out the light there completely. And so I thought we got better as the game went along. You know how you said about the first half, I was worried at half-time. I thought, we haven't got the ball. Why are we not dominating them? But actually, were we just looking at them? Were we looking at their patterns, what they were doing, waiting, showing a bit of maturity, not jumping out of our spots, creating space for them to run into? So when you got the goals, I can say that. If we didn't get the goals, I'd say, why are we so slow in the first half? But I do think we matured and we upped it, and then we've come away with the gaps were significant by the end.
It was always under control, I thought. Even the first half, when we didn't play well with the ball, they were not offering anything either. So it felt like we were always controlling when we didn't have the ball. And then with the ball, it was a little bit slow. And Mikel said after the game, the distances between players were a bit too far. So the ball was not quick enough to get to Saka, to get to Martinelli, or to Odegaard even. It was much better in the second half.
I do think we were looking at them as well. I definitely think that was a thing. I mean, there were times in the first half where Zinchenko would get the ball in plenty of space and he'd sort of put his foot on it and signal to everyone, like, calm down. And that's not Zinchenko's game. He's normally always forward thinking, always looking for that pass through the lines. And to see that kind of indicated to me that maybe there was something in what Clive said, that the team were just looking at Manchester United, trying to figure out what the best way to go about pressing them was.
So Timber had a fine game. He was deployed at both right back and left back, and then obviously scored the opener and did a great job shutting out Ahmad when he was switched to the left, surely?
I think people sleep on Timber, even amongst Arsenal fans, I think, really. And maybe because of the injuries on his first season that kept him out for the whole time. And even this season, he's been out a little bit. I think he's an amazing player. He's maybe the most intelligent player in this team, and that says a lot when you've got Odegaard and Saka and Rice and others. I think he makes such a difference on that right-hand side, because we can talk about Odegaard being out and how much that impacted us and impacted Bukayo, for example. But Timber being out at the same time as Odegaard was almost as impacting negatively than Odegaard on his own himself. And I just think he's a wonderful player, and I just want him to stay fit. I don't know where there's wood. Can touch your legs and your shoulders and you as well. Because I think without him, you can lose Odegaard, and this is a disaster for too long. Same probably for Bukayo. But I feel like Timber as well, especially with White being out now, it would be a disaster.
Yeah, I had to second that. I think Timber, if he could have stayed on against Liverpool, remember? Against Liverpool, against Salah, because Salah was gone. He was nowhere. I think one-on-ones, because he's got almost like the body of a centre-back, but he's got the light feet of a full-back. He can go side to side. He's got the agility with these quick, agile wingers. He can deal with them, but he's also solid in the tackle. But when he gets the ball, he travels with it. So Ben White's a bit more of a passer. He gets it, passes, and he runs off and makes third-man runs. Timber can carry, he can dribble past people, collisions, he's excellent. In the summer, I went to LA and I watched him in the summer, and I said to everybody, I said, he's playing this season. They said, well, who for? I said, it doesn't really matter. He's playing somewhere. He was that far ahead, and he had an injury, and it sort of went down. But he's back now.
When we first signed him, I was a little bit unsure about what his role was going to look like because he's played as a centre-back for the majority of his career. He's had stints at full-back, but he's always been predominantly a centre-back. When he came into the side at left-back, I thought defensively, very, very good, and I trust him implicitly in that side of the game. But going forward, I felt that he was maybe lacking a little something. When he switched over to the right, which is his natural side, and is a position that he's clearly more comfortable in, he looks like a far more complete player. And look, I love Ben White, but if Timber carries on like this, he's going to struggle to get back into the 11.
I know I've said it before, and I'm going to say it again. I just want to wrap all of our players up in cotton wool at the moment. Like every single one of them when they come off, I just want to wrap them up. So now let's move on to David Raya, who made a great save, which nearly could have cost us the game. But he was also great on his feet, wasn't he?
He was fantastic, David Raya. He looks like the complete goalkeeper now. At the beginning, you know, there were a few little errors in there. He was adapting to a new way of playing. He had the Ramsdale shadow over the top of him as well. Everybody was sort of clamouring for Aaron Ramsdale to come back in the team. I don't think that's helped because Ramsdale's departure has sort of lifted a weight off of David Raya's shoulders. And I see a goalkeeper now who is happy to have it at his feet. He's always looking to make angles for the defenders when they're under pressure. And now he's pulling off top saves as well. That's probably 5 or 6 like real point-saving saves that he's made this season, and that's a stark contrast to what we saw at the beginning of his Arsenal career.
I saw him at the Euros, and he was so happy. He was a number 2 for Spain, so yes, he won, but really, it was not the same, I guess, feeling than if he'd been a number 1 and played every game. But however, he was saying, "This is amazing for me." And if you think about it, 5 years ago, he would have never thought. Yeah. Let alone 10, but 5 years, even 4 years maybe, that one day he will be the Arsenal goalkeeper number 1, play for Spain, winning the Euros. And I think that must give you a massive boost in confidence. So when you start the season again, you almost are a different person. And it's not about arrogance or super confidence. It's just, this is how established he is now. He's the Euro winner with Spain, and he's the Arsenal number 1, and with everything that comes with it. And you can see, I think, he was never going to. He's old enough to. He was not immature, but I felt like he said, like, okay, this is me now. I've arrived here, and I think he shows it in every department of his game.
The right kind of confidence can really go a long way.
Yeah.
And now I want to move on to Kiwior. I want everyone's honesty here when they saw his name on the team sheet and it wasn't Gabriel. I just want honesty.
See, I am one of the ones and that actually don't mind him. Mm-hmm. I prefer him as a left-back, if I'm honest. I think he's better on the outside. I don't mind him, but he's a player that needs rhythm. When he doesn't play and he comes in, not like Jorginho. When Jorginho comes in after 2 months out, he's the same. When Kiwior comes in, he's not the same. He needs a few minutes in a row to get his rhythm. And he's different to Gabriel. So Gabriel and Calafiori, they're collision defenders. Front foot, they go in and they transition from there. So they're very aggressive. Kiwior's a bit more of a space defender. He's quite quick and he wants to manage space. So sometimes you need to go and challenge, and he stands off and let the situations develop. No. Go through, tear through the back of them, tear through, and that's what you should do. So once you get used to him and his style of defending, you can then react around him. I thought Rice did that really well. But I was really pleased for him because we all had that little feeling, how would he do? You know, because Gabriel's up there, isn't he? And to see that picture at the end of the game, I'm sure you all saw it, with Gabriel and him sort of celebrating, I like that. I like that a lot, definitely.
I knew he was not going to play. And to be fair, I was never stressed. I kind of trusted him, maybe because I knew United were not just ready offensively to bother us too much outside of set pieces. So it was, if it'd been, I don't know, Liverpool away or City away, for example, I would have maybe be a bit more stressed. But for that game, I didn't have too many worries. I feel a bit bad for him or sad for him because I think he would have liked to play more, obviously. Yeah. I think he deserved at times to play more because I think he's a good player. He was a very good defender in Serie A, and he didn't become a bad player by moving from Italy to here. It's just that the two guys in front of him in Saliba and Gabriel are just monsters. So I think he must have been frustrated at times not to play more, which is normal for every player. But yesterday he showed that he can still do a good job when you call upon him. Is that what you call upon him? Yep. And I also agree with Clive. Him coming on against West Ham to give him a bit more game time before last night was very beneficial because he needs that. He's a slow engine, really. So that did him a lot of good.
I think as fans, we always look at a squad and we want to see perfection. And the reality is that you're not going to have 25 players that are at the same level. So there is going to be drop-offs at times. when the team came out, my worry was not about Kivior specifically. It was about the left side of our defence as a unit. I was worried about the combination of him and Zinchenko more than I was about any one of them individually. But I think the guys are right. He needs rhythm. I don't think he's anywhere near as bad as some people make him out to be. I actually prefer him at centre-back. I know Clive prefers him at left-back. I prefer him at centre-back, but you need the right setup around him. And I think if you put Kivior in the side with your first choice midfield, your first choice left-back, you're looking at a completely different thing.
So then obviously we also spoke to Flex about the fact that we are playing them again in January. Do you think that Amorim will put in a similar game plan for the game?
I'll give the manager some praise, actually. I thought his game plan was quite good with what he had. He had a plan to, I think, to take us into deep water, keep it tight, slow down, lay down, waste some time, and then bring on Rashford and bring on pace towards the end of the game and see what we did. Amal, exactly, thanks, Jules. So basically, that's what I thought he was going to do. So as the game was developing, I'm thinking, I know what you're doing, mate. I know what you're doing. We need to get a goal. We need to get a goal. But at least he had a plan. So he went to a 5, almost like a 2-3, to 3 to press us. But also, what that allowed, the downside of that was it allowed space for Declan Rice to start running on the sides. And he saw it and took it. And he ended up with man of the match. And sometimes you stop us maybe having the ball, but you create something else, momentum on the sides, and we end up getting our corners and our shots, and we dealt with them. But I think if you're a Man United fan today and you saw what he did, that means he thought about us. You know, he thought about us and tried to put something in place while discovering his team. And I thought he did a good job. So he's not a bad coach. What's your space on him?
He's good. And they will be better in a month's time. They have to. Yeah. They're better than when Ten Hag was there and when he was sacked. So you could see the improvement. And I think we say often, it's much easier to have a strong structure defensively because it's easier to defend than to have a free-flow attack. It's always easier to put that kind of defensive patterns together, especially with a back five, then suddenly when you're on the ball, have those great movement and great understanding between everybody, especially in the new system. So the attacking side of their game was always going to take longer than the defensive side of their game. But in a month's time, really, they should be better. They would have played more, they would have trained more together. No, they have not that much time to work, but still, they might have a new player, maybe, although 12th of January, I think, or 11th is the day of the game. But still, the transfer market will be open, the transfer window, so they might even have a new player or two. So they should be better, but we will have, hopefully, Calafiori back and Gabriel back, and even if Arteta decides to rotate, which is very possible for the FA Cup, we will certainly be stronger if we want to than we were last night.
He didn't have a plan for the set pieces, though.
No, he didn't.
Does anyone?
Exactly.
He didn't.
Does anyone really?
Are we going to talk about Saliba's bum or no?
I mean, if you want to talk about Saliba's
I
bum,
coming
you can
here,
talk about Saliba's bum. You brought it up, there you go. Florence, over to you, Julien.
A bit like Harry said in his interview post-match, like, have we ever seen a better goal scored with an Arsenal bum? I don't think so. And I said to him after the game, I said, why are you doing that, scoring with your bum? He said, hey, they all count, brother. So he's right, you know, that made a massive difference.
He celebrated properly, didn't he? I thought he wasn't messing about. It's like he volleyed it in from 30 yards.
Did he go your side then?
I'm right over the corner flag, so I know
for
exactly.
You see exactly.
I know exactly. I saw it all.
Well, if you're going to do it, you've got to do it right,
exactly.
no?
Yeah.
No, the set pieces are incredible, though. Like, the deliveries are on point. They're put into a really dangerous area, but there's also so much variety to what we do. You've seen us set up with Gabriel on the penalty spot initially and create the channel for him in the middle of the goal by having blockers at the front and back post. And you've seen us use the front post as well as a weapon. And the fact that the runs start from the far side are great because in that period where you're running across the box, that's when you lose people. That's when you lose a marker. That's when you cause defenders to crash into each other and essentially open up the spaces. So I just think Arsenal have nailed that down to a T. And I joke that Amorim hasn't got a plan for it. We said it. No one has. No one has, because I think we've built up this kind of psychological thing as well, where you turn up every game and the opposition can see the corner and their goalkeeper's starting to be a bit apprehensive and questioning themselves. How do I deal with this? What do I do? And you end up just playing on that little bit of insecurity that you've created and taking full advantage.
Remind me where the set-piece coach is from? Of course, you know, it's just French flair. It's the general secret.
I just realised.
You want to sit here?
No,
just you know, want to do the whole show in French.
Anyway.
But no, you actually make a really good point about the psychology of these things, because every time now Arsenal line up for a corner, everyone, obviously Arsenal fans are excited, but you must dread to think what everyone else is thinking, because they're going to think, well, there's a really big chance this is going to go in.
Yeah, and just before Clive goes, I think you can train as much as you want on the training ground about defensive set piece, right? And you can say, let's say you're United, you say, okay, Harry Maguire, you're Gabriel for this training session here. And we saw him on the video doing this, and you can be Declan Rice, and you can be Saliba, and you can be Timber, and you can be so and so and so. But they will never behave at training like the real Gabriel and the real Saliba and the real Timber do, and what they do, and the blocks that Harry was talking about, front post, near post, etc. So you can try to work on it, you can show a lot of videos, but unless you actually train against us to do it, nobody is never really going to be able to cope, because you can't reproduce it at training. And that's the only thing. Pressing and the way people build up from the back, you can reproduce with players that are maybe not as good as the City players, for example, but you can still, okay, this is what they do. This pass goes there and there and there. So then you can have somebody doing the same pattern, and then you work on it. The set pieces is too different, because we're just too good at it, and nobody really can reproduce that just to train on it, to train how to defend it.
But even if you map it all out and you get people pretending to be Saliba and everyone, it's still, at the end of the day, once you're suddenly in the game, there's still the human element of you might think you know what they're going to do, but suddenly something could be different that one day, and they're like, actually, I'm going to do it differently.
Yeah, it's that commitment level, right? No one's going to throw their heads around in training at somebody. They're going to try to do things, but they're not going to have the same level of commitment. I think what we've done is really quite smart, because particularly when we travel from back post to front post, when you're passing players on laterally, it's very difficult when you stand zonally and someone's coming and you don't know when to pass on to the next defender. And so what Arsenal have done really well, they create almost like this ecosystem of space. So they run in and they say, one player, you're the space guy, you attack the space. We're going to create space for you to go and head it in. So it was Partey in the first half, and he missed it up, didn't he? He messed it up. And that's the Gabriel one. We create space for him by just crowding people and make them go the long way round and try to attack that space. So the guys are very smart at this, you know. But I am now waiting, because we are not cynical, arrogant Arsenal fans, but I am now waiting for the referees to find a reason to slow us down, right?
I don't think they can find anything.
To be fair as well, we've moved away from the whole Ben White standing in front of the goalkeeper thing. There's a bit of variety to it now, which is really impressive. And when you win the ball at the near post, like Timber did last night, you know, whether it goes directly in or just goes across the face of the goal, you've changed the angle of the cross, because the cross is coming in from one place, you're all set to defend it, and all of a sudden the flick on comes, and now you might be in the wrong position. So I think the near post thing is really powerful as well, but it's the variety that's key.
And at the end of the day, it's all about deliveries. And I think in Rice and Saka, we have two of the best corner takers overall in the league, because you can have the best headers of the ball in your team. If the deliveries are not perfect or very good, you're never going to score. And I think in them, Rice especially, and I agree with you, he's worked so well on, and now they're just like perfect every single time almost. We could have had 3 or 4 from the Rice's in-swinging corners last night, and that's very precious to have.
And Nana's one of the better keepers come to get this, right? So there was one short corner last night that got blown up by the referee for some reason, and you can see him going to short corners next, can't you? It's almost like preempt. People are going to be waiting. They're going to be standing in their zones looking for people. If you go short, change the angle and change the angle of the run, it's just another trick, right? So in the end, psychologically, we've got people.
But Nicolas Jovin is a genius, absolutely. Not just because he's French, just before you looking at me.
It helps, though.
I am
something special. But no, he's a lovely, lovely, great guy.
We'll leave it at that then for now.
I can still talk about the French if you want.
Last night's win made it 3 league wins on the bounce after a crazy game at the London Stadium on Saturday evening. So, Harry, after being 4-0 up, where was your head going into half-time with the score at 5-2?
So I was commentating on this game, so I had my kind of professional head on for the majority of the first half. But when West Ham made it 4-2, had a little bit of a wobble. I really did. It was that kind of initial reaction of, uh-oh, this could be going south for us, and I was really worried about it. But then I sort of had to kind of pinch myself and say, we're still 4 goals. We've still got 4 goals to their 2. We've still got a comfortable cushion here. And when the 5th went in, I knew that the game was done. And I remember saying to the co-commentator on the day, there's not going to be a single goal in the second half now. Everybody was predicting these ridiculous scorelines. I thought, that's it now. We're going to shut up shop and we're going to get out of here. So relatively relaxed, but I'd be lying if I said I didn't have a little bit of a wobble.
To be fair, had a wobble as well. Yeah, I did. And I actually said the same thing as we went into half-time. I was like, there's not going to be another goal in the second half. I just felt it.
But West Ham, we just gifted, it was like Christmas before, just 2 weeks earlier.
It's that Newcastle game, Jules.
No, I think it's the trauma Arsenal fans just
we've got
have.
a long way from that, though.
Well,
I know, but
Jules,
sometimes it's hard to get the wounds away.
I've got scars, mate.
See?
Tottenham 4-4.
I know, yeah.
At 4-2, I was booking restaurants. And suddenly it all changed. And so Newcastle was I was a bit more remote. But these things, they stay with you, right? So, but at 4-0, when Havertz scored, at that moment, I'm sitting here thinking, oh my goodness, how good are we? And we were really good that period. And they had just fallen away, and they created a really good first goal. But at that moment, I thought, wow, we're going to do something special here. Really special. And it sort of dipped. So I sort of walked away from the game thinking, we could have really hammered them. We're going to really hammer them. And we didn't quite. And so we left the butt on the table, And so, but hey, it's still good enough. Right? Should we complain about 5 away goals? Should never be complaining about that. So.
I was just watching and I was like, it made me laugh because I said, oh my God, why are we gifting them those 2 goals? It's almost like if we were kind. The first one is a great goal. Soler maybe has a little bit too much space and Trossard is just asleep on the Wan-Bissaka, or maybe he thinks this is just Wan-Bissaka, he can't score a goal in his life, although he scored the weekend before. And then the free kick is never a free kick in the first place, and then Emerson is a lovely free kick, no problem. But I promise you, I was cool. I was saying I knew they were just not good enough to be able to score again against us.
Yeah.
But maybe this is the kind of little blips that should not happen to a team. And maybe this is also part of the learning curve. And it's not a bad thing because I think a lot of those young players will think even at 4-0 up, away from home, even if it's a good goal, yes, it's a good goal, but we should not consider it.
He's done his healing on his scars already. He's just confident.
Yeah, mine are there permanently, I think.
It's always nice to beat West Ham, isn't it? So one man who scored an absolute belter against West Ham during his Arsenal career was Lucas Podolski. And our man, Ollie Klink, caught up with the German striker at an EA Sports event. Here's Lucas on his Arsenal memories.
Now, how do you look back at your own time at Arsenal as well? How much did you enjoy it there?
My time at Arsenal, fantastic. There are no other words. I enjoy every moment, every training, also my private life in the city with the people, with the community, and when I see pictures, videos back in the days, always great to see, always feel the connection with the fans, and this is all about. I have still friends there. I was there at the Champions League game last time. So big honor for me to playing in the Premier League, to playing for a big club like Arsenal. Everyone dreaming to play in the Premier League or in the Bundesliga. I play in both. I play for a fantastic club with fantastic people. That's why, on the end, 100% great decision to join this fantastic club.
Do you have a favourite moment that sticks out from your time there?
It's difficult to choose one moment. Of course, you have always the first game, first goal, the Champions League goal, the volley. But I always, as my answer when someone asks the question, it's all about the whole time. It's not about one situation, because football is more than goals, than trophies for me. It's also to be with the club, with the fans, with the community around. And this is more important for me than speak about, especially only about one goal.
Were there certain players in that squad that you enjoyed messing around with or having a joke with?
People who know me are always fun guy in the dressing room. I always enjoy to be around with the people, with the staff also. And that's why, I don't have one guy who was my best friend. Because I try to joke with everyone, with the staff.
Because you were the joker.
with the people from the the kit managers, the physios, everyone. So I think always it's important to don't forget we are all humans. We have also a private life. We need to have fun. We need to enjoy. Of course, you play for 3 points. You are in the big club. But don't forget to live don't forget to enjoy.
When I asked you about your favourite moment, I do remember a certain picture of you celebrating, I think at White Hart Lane, in amongst the Arsenal fans. That's got to be right up there, hasn't it?
Of course, from the point of view from the fans, of course, yeah, because when you see these pictures still around social media everywhere, that's why, of course, great moment, because I think it's not allowed to go into the stands, in England especially, but I jumped somewhere inside, and of course, when you see these pictures, especially away, is great, you know, this picture exists. Nobody can take it away, and that's why it's one of the key moments. Yes.
So a bit of a cult hero, isn't he? What is everybody's favourite Lucas Podolski memory?
Well, I've got one. I don't think it was one with him playing. Just a picture of him in the Spurs end after we'd beaten them, and he's sort of like a supporter's sort of hero because of he played with a level of joy and fun, and almost you can imagine him not being the one being ultra professional off the pitch, maybe having a bit of drinking, a bit of fun, but he definitely understood the connection to the fans, and that's what I remember about him mostly.
There's a few goals. I mean, the West Ham one that you just mentioned in your intro was pretty special. I just think that left foot was so powerful when he takes shot. And then we were at the Euros with Harry in Germany, and he was everywhere on television as a pundit. He was doing advertising all the time for all sorts of stuff. Plus, obviously, his kebab, food restaurants, the chain. And I know we were not together, but we thought about the same thing. We have to go and try it. I think Podolski, the player, is probably better than Podolski, the kebab. But I'm no expert in kebab.
You said it now.
They were okay. It was okay,
yeah.
But there was better that was available, I have to say. For me, with Podolski, it's just, as you mentioned, the power in that left foot. I always remember a goal that he scored, I think it was at Galatasaray, where it was just into the roof of the net at the near post. You just felt that if you gave Lucas Podolski the space to kind of wind back that left foot, even if it was savable in a lot of people's eyes, the power was
inevitable.
The power was unbelievable. And I agree with Clive where he says, like, maybe not the most professional is how you kind of see him a little bit.
I'm guessing.
I mean, he hasn't opened like a healthy eating chain. He's opened the Doner Kebab chain, which kind of says a lot. But no, I loved him. He was a fantastic player for Arsenal.
Julien, you're on an absolute roll today, you are. No. About kebabs, how French people are,
Just saying, like, I expected the kebabs to be as good as he was as a player, and it was okay. I agree with Harry.
This Sunday, we take on Fulham at Craven Cottage, and joining us now to give the Fulham perspective is Jack Collins from Fulhamish. Welcome to Inside Gooners, Jack.
Hello, thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Good. Well, Jack, Fulham have got a very Arsenal feel to them this year, don't they? With 4 ex-Gooners in the team at the moment.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, it's been absolutely brilliant. Hail End FC in so many ways. But what we're kind of seeing across the board, I think, is seeing that combination play between them start to really tick. And Reece Nelson has started the season on the bench, has really worked his way into this side. And it's now a measure of that Fulham will miss him, having not been able to play at the weekend. So I'm excited to see what they bring together over the course of the rest of the season. And I'm intrigued to see what it looks like. We've had a few players down the years. Harry Wilson comes to mind, who doesn't ever seem to really turn up against any of his old clubs. And I know that Arsenal is a place where there's a lot of love for Emile Smith-Rowe in particular, but also for those other Arsenal boys who have come over to the cottage now. So I'm intrigued to see what it looks like, what it feels like on Sunday for Emile coming up against a place he so dearly loves.
Hail End FC just trying to make a point there, right? So,
do what we can, right?
Speaking of making a point, do you think that Emile Smith-Rowe is going to try to make a point against Arsenal?
Look, it's hard. I think that when you come out of a club the size of Arsenal and you come into one the size of Fulham, there's always going to be that level of being a slightly bigger fish in a slightly smaller pond, right? And that's okay and it's acceptable and those kind of things tick along. So there will be, I think, a sense of having performed well for long parts of this season. He was dropped in some of the bigger games, and City away comes to mind, where he relinquished his spot to Andreas Pereira, and it was probably a little bit different in the game plan in what Fulham were asking from their number 10 in those games. So I think he'll have seen that and thought, those are the biggest games, in our season. They're the ones I want to be playing in, and so I've got to come out here and prove a point in this kind of game. it is always hard, I think, when you come back to somewhere where there is such an appreciation for you from the fan base. And I can't see it being one of those games where Emil Smith-Rowe comes in, and really wants to hurt Arsenal in any sort of way. But equally, if he wants to maintain his space within this Fulham setup, there is a bit of a question mark, I think, in terms of these biggest games, whether Fulham need a kind of fluid, rangy 10, or they need someone with the pressing game of an Andreas. And he's got questions to answer. I think he'll be given that opportunity.
Harry, do you have a question?
Yeah, I was just going to ask Jack what he thinks the kind of ambition should be for Fulham this season. I think Marco Silva's done an incredible job. It's a side that are playing really, really well at the moment. I'm slightly concerned about the game on Sunday. Maybe it's just that apprehension that kicks in ahead of every sort of really important game. But how do you feel Fulham are getting on? What's the kind of aim for you come the end of the season?
I think that obviously with those years of bouncing around, that consolidation has basically been the aim of the game. And I think we've seen in the last 2 years, there have been some interesting different parts to Fulham that have changed. The first season we came up, Fulham beat pretty much everybody around and below them, but really didn't trouble any of the top 6 or beyond. Last season, we gave up a few more points to teams at the bottom of the table, but were able to bloody the noses of a few of the bigger guns, obviously yourselves included, at the Cottage on New Year's Day. So we're kind of coming to that point, and you look at it and you think, well, what's this season going to be? What's the development? And I think we're seeing a Fulham side that are more adaptable, able to control certain games against weaker opponents, and can play in transition and quicker and more directly against bigger opponents. So that level of being like, can you push that onwards to maybe sneak in the last European spot if it gets down to 8th? Can you go on a cup run whilst maintaining that solidity in the table? And we know that teams have overstretched themselves in the past. We've seen it, I think, from mid-range teams who have ended up suffering for that down the line and longer on. So I think it's a case of making sure that everything's safe, secure, that we're well away from that relegation vortex, and then either kicking on in one of the cups or trying to find the consistency that's been lacking a little bit this year. We've been good for the majority of this season, but that clinicality in front of goal, that consistency has eluded Fulham. And that's the difference, I think, between being in a race for European football or being comfortably mid-table.
Clive?
Yeah, I think Fulham have invested very smartly, actually. And they're really starting to build a team there and build a squad and show a level of ambition. And is it Anthony Robinson as a left back? He's been a player that's maybe took a couple of years to get going, but now everyone talks about him. So when I look at them, I see a team that can transition, but also you can dominate teams, particularly at your level maybe. So are you impressed with the ambition and some of the players that are showing themselves so far this season?
Yeah, absolutely. And look, it was always going to take time with new players coming in the summer, I think, to get everybody settled and onto the same page and moving in the way that Marco Silva wants. But he drives the club. This is a manager, not unlike things at Arsenal, I think, who very much has control over the majority. He's not making all the decisions himself, but ultimately has a say in pretty much everything. And his ambition is, and he's stated this quite clearly, to take Fulham into a top half team and to get into Europe and have a go at one of those lower European competitions. I don't think anyone's kidding themselves that Fulham are going to be in the Champions League anytime soon, but a Conference League berth and potentially, the opportunity to go on a run. Fulham have that famous Europa League run in 2010, which is the highlight of pretty much all of our lives for so many years, and try and do something like that. And I think that with the squad building that's happened, I think the next step and the next logical step is to spend on a striker who has that consistency in front of goal. It's the one part of the puzzle that feels a little bit like it's missing. But generally, I have been really impressed with the way that Fulham have gone around their squad building and trying to fulfill the manager's ambitions in recent years.
Jack, we record this before you play against Brighton on Thursday night, so it's a bit difficult, but I wanted to talk about the week because it was a tricky week on paper with Spurs away, Brighton and then Arsenal, obviously. And the Spurs game, maybe you feel like you should have won that game, and I think I would agree with you probably, even if you lost then Tom Kearney as well towards the end. But what would be a good, those 8 days with those 3 games? What would you be happy with, considering you know already one of the 3 results?
Yeah, I mean, look, I would have taken 4 points at the start of the game. So as you're listening to this, you'll know if we've won against Brighton, and therefore you can do what you want on Sunday, right? So it was one of those. I would have taken 4. But I think, as much as this week is difficult, and you're absolutely right, This is exactly it. It's where you want those tests to come. And I think this is a measure, not necessarily in terms of results, but in terms of performances of where Fulham are stacking up against their competition. Now, Fulham are not in direct competition with Arsenal, obviously. But I think if they were to be looking at a European spot, they would be in direct competition with Brighton and potentially to a slightly lesser degree Spurs. So you want those performances to stand up. And you're right. I think if it ends 11 versus 11 at the weekend, then Fulham go on and win that game. I thought we were the better side. You know, it is what it is. With a tackle like that, it was a red card, and you have to kind of sometimes accept that. But I think that Brighton on tonight, as we're speaking now, but feels like the test of where this Fulham side are and whether we can compete for one of those European spots. The Arsenal game feels like more of a test of where this Fulham side are in terms of playing, punching upwards, seeing if we can give those kind of bloody noses to teams at the top of the table, because there was a sense of that last year. And I wonder, with the City result not going our way, but the performance going our way, if this now feels like a test, if you can actually start to roll those over the line.
Well, thank you very much, Jack, for joining us. I just want to say good luck for the season and none for Sunday.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Right back at you.
Thank you very much. So, Fulham put a bit more than a dent in Arsenal's title challenge last year, didn't they? They cost us 5 points with a win and a draw. Does that one worry anybody then ahead of Sunday?
It worries me. Well, they beat us fair and square on their ground. Let's not mess about it. We scored early, and we thought, here we go, nice little day out. But actually, they beat us properly. They ran us down the sides, they made us work hard, and they got their goals at the right times, and they won convincingly. The home game...
Was it in August? Was it early on in the season?
Yeah, it's early on in the season. They went down to 10 men and they scored from a corner late. And that's a big slip, that was. Very, very costly. So that's got to be in our heads. If your team talk should be quite simple, shouldn't it? They took big points from us last season. And so we have to go there and do it. There's no point in we all know, in some ways, we played Manchester United last night, but we just played a team we had to win. So what do we have now? We have complete clarity what we have to do. We have to keep going. To the badge we're playing against, it doesn't really matter. It doesn't. We have to keep winning. Otherwise, we're not going to get where we need to get, right? Because we can't afford any more slips. So Fulham are just the next team in the way, and we have to focus on that.
Yeah, I think this is the kind of game, again, if you want to win the title, that you have to win. You go away from home. We knew that they had to put, after the bit of a dip of form, they had to put a big winning streak together, which they are doing now, competitions. And this is a game where you have to go, and it's not about being overconfident or taking it for granted. It's just that you are a contender for winning this league. And those games have to be won. It's as simple as that. Liverpool have the derby, obviously, and you just don't know what could happen there. Even if they will be favourite on paper, City, same. Chelsea have a tough game against Spurs.
Yeah.
So this could be a weekend that actually is great for us in terms of results going our way, everywhere. So this is the kind of game where you go, and I think this team and this mentality and Arteta just go everywhere to win. It's not a problem. But we saw last season that maybe last season after the Saka early goal, we took it a little bit for granted and they walked on us. That can't happen again.
Yeah, as long as you learn the lessons from what happened previously, then you should be okay. I think this is going to be an intriguing one tactically. I look at Marco Silva and I think he's one of the more tactically astute coaches in the league. And I think that there's a lot of games against lower opposition, if you want to call them that. And I don't mean that disrespectfully, where it's a case of, you set up in your way and you trust that you've got the better players and the talent to go out there and get the job done. Whereas in this game, I think we've got to be really switched on to the tweaks that Marco Silva makes. I think he caught us out in the game at the Emirates at the start of last season. He attacked us down one side in the early stages of the game. We got caught out, they scored from it, and we gave ourselves a problem and a mountain to climb. So I do think that we've got to be really switched on to the adjustments and tweaks that he makes. And obviously the Smith Rowe thing makes it a little bit special as well.
Yeah, well, we will wait and see what happens, especially with Emile Smith-Rowe. And then just very, very quickly before we wrap up, just a little mention about the title race. So we got a stunning 3 points last night and Liverpool dropped points. I mean, that's huge for Arsenal, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. And I think there are other teams that are revving their engines as well, by the way. Chelsea are there. They're playing in Europe, but not really playing in Europe because they can rest their teams. And so they are there and they're confident at the moment. Man City have reawoken, as we knew they would. Kevin De Bruyne has found a youth drug all of a sudden and he's pinging the balls in towards the net. So we have to do our work. So Liverpool's a strange one. I don't know how you guys feel. When they came to our ground, and I've seen Liverpool many times come to Arsenal, I didn't think they was as good as previous teams. I just had this feeling that they weren't quite as dominant, and we dropped some points in that day. So I'm just looking at them and saying, okay, let's see what happens when you hit a rock in the road. And maybe that rock in the road is going to start at Goodison on the weekend.
I took a decision at the end of last season to protect my feelings moving forward. So until Arsenal close the gap to within 4 points, I'm saying we're out of the title race. I'm doing that to protect myself, to protect my feelings, because I turned up on that final day last season thinking, you know what? I was driving through North London, there was Arsenal shirts everywhere, and I thought, it's going to happen, you know. And I was covering the game for radio, so I had the West Ham game in my ears, and Manchester City scored after how long? And I just felt so deflated for the rest of the afternoon. So I'm protecting my feelings, and until it's a 4-point gap, we're out of it as far as I'm concerned.
Well, thank you for finishing on that note. I really appreciate it. Army, anything that you want to finish on in French?
Yeah, anything French.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you so much, Jules. Well, that is all we've got time for this week. A huge thanks to Julien Laurens, Clive Palmer and Harry Symeou. We'll see you next week. And remember, trust the process.